Hello and welcome back to our journey into the human experience. My name is Akshay Nanavati. I'm the founder of the show, and I run the site existingtoliving.com, where we help people get out of their own way psychologically, move through those internal barriers, and create that dream lifestyle. And that's what the show is all about. In this show, I bring guests from all walks of life who are living that lifestyle that they have always wanted to live. And we talk about what it takes to actually create that. We explore the frontiers of human limits and how to push past them, how to push through fear, which is the number one obstacle in the way of any success and failure, really. It's the number one thing that comes in our way. And we talk about how to push through it and create that dream lifestyle. Whatever that looks like for you, it doesn't matter whether you want to travel the world or just be at home and look after your family, whatever it may be, there's a way to do it. There's a formula. And the people we bring on this show are people who have already done that. They know that formula. They know how to create it. And I'm really excited to introduce you to today's guest. My guest today is a friend of mine. I've met him recently online. His name is Sean Ogle. He runs this website, Location 180, where he talks about how to build a business, live anywhere, and achieve freedom. He's really got an amazing story. He started his life as a financial planner, working 50 hours a week, hated his job, but managed to find a way out. Like he said right over here, he quit his job, moved to Thailand, built a business, and now this is what he does. He's built an awesome following, a real tribe of people who love what he does because it really is really useful information. I've used some of his tools myself to build what we have here in this community. So I think you'll get a lot of value from this interview, and I highly recommend you go check out his site, read about his bucket list. It's really cool, the things he wants to do, travel all over the world, and you can see that climb mountains. I can obviously relate to that, as you all know. So check out his site, sign up for his free course where he gives you 6 steps to how to create your business and the fastest way to do so. It's got a lot of great information. So after you're done with this interview, be sure to check out his site. But for now, I really want you to listen to some of the things he says in this interview because he really shares some of the strategies he has used to build his business and create this lifestyle where he can do anything he wants, when he wants, and where he wants. If you're at all interested in doing that, in traveling the world, or just working from anywhere, just building a business online, then you are going to love today's interview. So without further ado, here is Sean Ogle. Hey Sean, how you doing today? Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time.
Dude, my pleasure. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's awesome. I've been reading your blog for a little while. I was just telling my readers all about it and showing them your website. And I love what you do. I love everything about your work. So it's a real honor to speak with you.
No, I'm glad to be here. It's fun that there's actually people that are interested in what I'm doing. So
Of course, man. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing and how you got started with Location 180 and what brought you on this journey that you're on today.
Yeah. So a little over 4 years ago, I was working as a financial analyst in Portland, Oregon, and I just kind of realized that was not ever my goal. It wasn't what I wanted to do. I kind of fell into it after college. And my best friend and I, we took a trip to Brazil in February of 2009. Like, I saved up all my vacation time to do it. And I got back from that trip and I was like, oh man, like something needs to change. Like, I'm not traveling. I don't know my own business. And those were, kind of 2 goals I had set for myself at the beginning of, or when I was in college. So basically, a series of events kind of unfolded, and I started Location 180 like 2 months after that. 6 months after that, I quit my job. I moved to Thailand for a year, basically to learn how to do internet marketing and build up my online skill set, and things have just kind of evolved from there.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So you quit your job 6 months after starting Location 180.
Yeah. So when I started Location 180, it was just branded as Sean Ogle. It had no tagline. Really the reason I started it was because I wanted to hold myself accountable for all the stuff that I was doing in my life. And, that kind of started with the bucket list. So I created a list of all the things I wanted to do, having no clue, how I was going to actually get any of these things done or what was going to happen. So I just started writing a lot. And I was writing about everything from past vacations I'd taken to how I didn't know what to do with my life and how I was unhappy with my job and all of this stuff. And over that, 6-month period, I was kind of surprised, started finding there was a lot of people in a similar situation as me that were also clueless and didn't know what to do with their lives. And so, kind of a bunch of stuff happened where, we were in a small financial firm. And when we opened the firm in 2009, or 2007, excuse me, the market was at, the highest it had ever been. And in the middle of, 2009, the market had crashed. Things were rough, and my boss had said, he's like, if you can think of any creative ways to save the company money, I'd love to hear about them. So, thinking I was the smartest guy in the world, I put together a plan, basically to move to Hawaii and work remotely. where my buddy was living. And so I told him I'd take a 50% pay cut if they let me do that on a trial basis for 3 months. They thought about it for a month and then basically came back, but we will accept this as your resignation. And so we there was some back and forth, and finally I left, and that's kind of how that all came about. So I wasn't planning on leaving. I had no idea that I was going to be leaving when I did, but it really was the best thing that could have ever happened. It was 2 months after that I took off for Thailand, and the rest is history.
Wow. So what was that like when you first, when you first left? Was that scary? How did you how did you handle that mentally?
Well, I think I went home and I cried the first day. I was like, what the hell is going on in my life? I wasn't ready for this. And then I woke up the next day and it was like 7 in the morning, and I went and I worked out in the morning for the first time ever. And I was like, all right, I can get used to this. This is nice. Yeah. But really, I just kind of said, hey, universe, let's see where this goes. My friend who was living in Hawaii was going to start traveling that January, and he was just going to do a world trip. And so my plan was to go travel around with him.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening was there's a guy, you might know him, his name's Dan Andrews. He runs the Lifestyle Business Podcast.
Okay.
He also has a site called the Tropical MBA. And at the time, he had no brand, no one knew who he was. And he sent me an email. He said, hey, Sean, I think what you're doing is awesome. I saw that you quit your job. That's great. Or you left your job. How about you come out to Thailand? I'm looking to bring a smart guy out here, teach them internet marketing, get them to help me with my business part-time, and I'll pay for, your basic living expenses in Asia. So $800 a month. And, basically making what could have been the worst decision of my life or the best decision of my life. I said, hey, let's do it. And I went out there, and that was kind of how it all got started. So he was definitely one of my big mentors as I was kind of learning the ropes and, learning about marketing and WordPress and blogging and all of that stuff.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So since you first started, then how have you gotten to where you're at today with Location 180? And, how did you grow the presence online and build your business the way you have to?
I've made a very big effort to make it as personal as possible. So you see a lot of bloggers and they have these big jumps. So it's like they'll hit the front page of Yahoo or something and they'll get 10,000 new visitors and they'll flatline. And then they might get another big jump or whatever. Mine, I've had some big wins, but nothing like that dramatic. Mine's been a very kind of steady slope up. And I think, the one thing I attribute that to is I try and be as personal as possible. I ask people to send me emails and I respond to every single one. I talk to a lot of people. I meet a lot of people in person when I travel. And I think that's one of the biggest factors in my success. Also, you look at people like Chris Guillebeau or Tim Ferriss or some of the, really well-known people that are doing similar things. And if you go back and you look at their blog, it just kind of seemed like they were, hugely popular out of thin air. Like you go back and you look at their blogs and you never see the really beginning phases where they were struggling and they were, weren't sure what to do. And the first 6 months of my site was all about how clueless I was and I didn't know what to do with my life. And I think there's a lot of people that can relate to that. They go back and they look at my archives and oh man, I'm right where this guy was. And so it adds an extra layer of credibility. And so I think that's certainly one of the key aspects to my success.
Yeah, got it. No, I love that. And that's obviously how we connected is just writing to you and you obviously wrote back. So I'm glad.
There you go.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that for sure. So when you first started and you talk about how you write about, what you didn't know what you were doing, how do you handle that phrase, that period of your life? Because, many people, I interact with people like that as well on my blog as it's growing. People are asking me, how are you doing this? How do you make a living traveling the world? And they're like, I can't quit my job. There's always a lot of fear quitting their job and, embracing that. So how do you handle that fear of the unknown?
It's one of those things I kind of realized is when I first kind of decided I wanted to leave my job, or I thought that I might want to leave my job, it was 18 months before I actually left. And I had all of these things I was terrified of. What are my friends and family going to think? I've got this great job and the economy sucks. Why would I quit? How am I going to pay my rent? What would I do? Until I kind of realized with all of that is that it all boiled down to one fear. There's really only one fear in the world, and that's the fear of uncertainty. So you're not afraid of whether or not, a spider is going to bite you. Or you're not afraid of a spider. You're afraid of whether or not that spider is going to bite you and the uncertainty surrounding that. You're not afraid of the dark. You're afraid of the uncertainty surrounding what might be lurking around. And so once you kind of boil it down, it's like, oh, I'm not afraid of all these things. I'm just afraid of this one thing, this idea of uncertainty. It becomes much easier to overcome because you can kind of break down the different levels of uncertainty you're facing and, kind of break it down and figure out what the root of it is and then work back up and overcome it. I think that uncertainty is one of those things where the vast majority of people in the world, they kind of say, oh, I want the most certain life I could possibly have. It's like, anything else, it's too uncomfortable, it's too scary, I don't want to do that. And, if you kind of actually take the time to overcome that and start looking at this uncertainty as an asset, really that's one of the best things you could possibly do. Because when you don't know, what's going to happen, anything can happen.
Yeah.
I never knew, what was going to happen when I moved to Thailand. I never knew that, Location 180 would turn into what it has been. And that's all because I just kind of embraced this idea of uncertainty and turned it into an asset rather than a fear.
Yeah, I love that. I love the way you said that. And now that was your first product that you created, right? The Embracing Uncertainty.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that and how did that go for you? Like when you, that's your first online product. How did that launch go for you? How did that fuel your business?
It was really interesting. I've had 3 major product launches over the last 3 or 4 years, and what it's done is it's kind of formed a nice little story arc for my life. So first it was overcome the fear of uncertainty and overcome your, whatever fears you have in order to make a big life change. And then it was Location Rebel. Here's how you build a business online. And then the most recent one is Hacking the High Life, how to live the luxury lifestyle for less. So how to once you've got this business, how do you, still live that $1 million lifestyle even if you're only making a few $1,000s a month, that kind of thing. And that wasn't done intentionally. It was just kind of those are the steps I've taken. And so, that was what I knew about. When I created Overcome the Fear of Uncertainty, that's what I had just gone through. I was like, well, I don't want to create something unless I've experienced it firsthand and I'm an expert. And at the time, I was awesome at, basically looking at the things I was afraid of and overcoming them. I didn't feel like my business was at the point quite yet, a program around that. And so it kind of made sense. And, the launch itself by, my standards today was relatively small, but at the time, I think I made a couple $1,000s that first day. And, I was thrilled. It was one of those things that a lot of people have gotten a lot of value out of it. And it really was, the first time where I was like, you know what, there could be something viable here. This could be a real way to make a living, and I actually do have some value to provide to people.
Yeah. And what was that product creation process like? Was that a challenge for you? I know that's something that I interact with people a lot, like having a tough time creating an online product to sell. What was that like?
It was an evolution. Right after I quit my job, so I quit my job October of 2009. And in September of 2010, so almost a year later was when that product actually came out. Originally, it was just going to be a short, free manifesto, something I was going to put out there. There was going to be much less of a undertaking. And then as I was living in Thailand and I started kind of thinking about this more and I started having more ideas for, what I wanted to put into it, I kind of realized I was like, you know what, this has the potential to be much greater than I initially planned it to be. So, it took me much longer to create and write that product than some of the other ones, simply because, I had been working on it for so long and it had so many different variations. And so, I started working on it October, November of 2009, and I really started ramping it up in July, kind of right after I got back from Thailand. And so then made the final push those last few months and put it out there.
Oh, very cool. Okay, that's awesome. So what are some of the specific strategies that worked for you in terms of growing your traffic as well as potentially with product launching?
There's been a few things that have worked really well. Guest blogging has worked out really, really well for me. If you can find people with a larger audience than you in complementary niches, that's kind of the sweet spot I found. So, if I'm, posting on all the other, location independent or lifestyle business blogs, that's great, but it's kind of at the point where once you've established yourself a little bit, there's a good chance a lot of the people on those sites are going to know who I am already. But if I say I'm going to find a big personal finance blog, for instance, it's not in my niche, but there's definitely some overlap, and some of those people would be interested in what I'm talking about. And so that's where I found the best results from that standpoint. Also, as far as product launches are concerned, I've learned a lot of lessons, but the ones where I had a plan from start to finish were the ones that worked the best. So, for instance, I did Location Rebel. And before I even started creating the product, I wanted to have some sort of free giveaway that would be really valuable that I could use to get people to sign up for my email list.
Yeah.
And so I created Location Rebel Arsenal. So the tagline was everything you need to work from anywhere. And it was all the tools, services, products that I use in order to travel and work. And I had a few hundred signups the day that I made that live, which gave me a great base for starting to market the product itself. And I released a series of 4 videos over the next 2 months that kind of went along with that. And then when I did the beta launch, I opened it up. It was $300, and I opened it up for 20 spots. And I was thinking it would take a week to sell out, a couple days, something, and it sold out in like 48 minutes. And so that was when I was like, you know what?
Cool.
I did something right here. Something really worked. And so I've done other product launches where I haven't gone through that whole process. I haven't really tried to capture the specifically targeted email addresses. I haven't given away stuff for free, and those ones haven't gone as well. So I really learned an important lesson when I did that launch.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit more detail about Location Rebel? Because I know a lot of my audience, they get the similar questions, and I can imagine they'd be really interested in something like that. So how does that work? Like, what is the step-by-step framework in Location Rebel that would help people quit their jobs and live the kind of freedom that you have?
So pretty much there's a 3-step process that I advocate on my blog, inside Location Rebel, everywhere anybody will listen. It's this kind of 3-step process for actually starting a business.
Got it.
Most people start with step 3, and that's why they fail. Step number 1 is build the skills you need. So things like, how to install and manage WordPress, basic copywriting, some SEO, understanding how to leverage social media to your benefit. Some of these basic skills that are so fundamental to success, but most people, just kind of skip entirely. They just kind of say, I want to, go start a bunch of niche sites, affiliate niche sites, and see what happens. And they fail because they don't take the time to properly, learn the skills early on. And so my goal with Location Rebel is, I think I've got 13 blueprints now, and the goals take you from total beginner to advanced intermediate level with each of these skills. So once you've done that, step number 2 is pick one of those skills and freelance in it. So for me, that was SEO. So I got to be pretty good at SEO, during the time I was in Thailand. I came back to the States, and $800 a month doesn't really cut it when you're trying to live in Portland. So I basically started marketing myself as a freelance, search engine optimization guy. And within a couple weeks, I went to one event a couple weeks after I got back, and I got offered 3 jobs on the spot. So that's kind of the idea, is build up a freelance business, which 1 gives you the confidence to know you can make money on your own, and 2 gives you a nice base of income. So if you do want to leave your job or whatever, you don't have to worry about paying the kind of baseline of your bills. So you build your skills, you freelance in one of those, and then finally step number 3 is applying everything you've learned to your own projects. So whether that's an e-commerce store, a membership site, an affiliate site, whatever it is, once you've kind of got those first 2 steps covered, then you can really start pushing on your own things, and that's when things get more fun. Most people would rather own a membership site that makes passive income than do freelance SEO work. But what I found, and what a lot of the people I've worked with have found, is that if you follow that process, you'll have a much clearer path to success than if you just try and get everything all at once at the end.
Got it. That makes sense. So in looking back now on the, from when you first started the point to where you are today, what are some things, if any, that you would have done differently, or the biggest takeaways, the lessons you've learned from your experiences?
It's really tough to say that I would do anything different. I am so thrilled with my life and where it's at now, and what the business has become, and the people that I get to talk to. If I had done anything different, it might have changed the trajectory, and I may not be doing what I'm doing now. And so, it's easy to say, oh, I wish I'd left my job earlier, or, oh, I wish that I'd started started my blog a few years earlier, all of that stuff. But, really, I think that, I am where I am because of the events that transpired. There's a lot of people that say, oh, do you wish you had skipped college and just became an entrepreneur right away? And, the answer would be no, because, if it wasn't for going to college and getting, my finance job where I really realized how much I didn't want to do that, I wouldn't have that perspective, and thus wouldn't have the drive to be, really working on my own and doing it day in and day out and so on and so forth.
Got it. So what would be the biggest lesson outside of the fact that maybe you wouldn't do anything differently? And I love the way you answered that too. That's a really cool way to look at it. I love your attitude about that. So what would be the biggest lesson you think that you've learned since you first quit your job to today?
Um, the worst case scenario almost never, if never, happens. I get so many people that are so terrified about what might happen, they fail to look at the upside. It's like, well, what might happen? You could become a millionaire and be able to live this awesome lifestyle and get out of your cubicle. But I mean, especially early on, I mean, if you're still in your 20s, there's very little you can't recover from. So it's like, take some risks, leave your job, go travel, start a business online. Like, worst case scenario, you run out of money, you fail, you come back, you get a job. But I think that's one of the biggest takeaways is that, with everybody I've talked to that's taken some kind of risk or a leap of faith or whatever, the worst case scenario has never come to fruition. And so, I know it hasn't in my life in any shape, or form. And so I think that's something that's important to consider when you're trying to figure out what you want to do with your life and whether or not you want to start a business. And yeah.
Yeah, got it. And now when you talk about that leap of faith and taking the risks, you've obviously taken a lot. And now I was looking at your bucket list, and you've been bungee jumping, mountain climbing, skydiving, all kinds of cool stuff. So do you think that as you keep taking risks and taking those leaps into the unknown, is fear a part of the journey, or do you think that it's possible to eliminate the fear?
You can never eliminate the fear completely. Like I said, I think the only fear, or at least for me, the only thing I'm afraid of is the uncertainty surrounding all of those things. So for the most part, anytime I find myself being afraid of that fear of what might happen, I kind of basically remember everything I just told you. It's like the worst case, scenario never happens.
Yeah.
If I were going to go like base jump out of a helicopter or something, that might be a different story. That might not be something I would do. But frankly, it's the more I do things, the more I just kind of realize they're worth doing. One of the things I realized when I was still in my job was when I was 80, 90 years old, I wanted to be able to look back and just be able to tell a bunch of cool stories. It didn't matter if I was rich. It didn't matter, if I had a bunch of money or whatever. As long as I could look back in my life and I had more stories than anybody else and more great experiences, then nothing else mattered. So that's kind of how I try and live my life. I just try and make every day interesting and, try and do some fun stuff in the process.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So in this journey that you've had, who or even what has been like some of the greatest sources of inspiration for you?
Like a lot of other people, I read the 4 Hour Work Week when it first came out back in like 2007. So, I think that was certainly an inspiration. I wouldn't say that was like the full on like catalyst like it is for some people, but, kind of got me thinking, it's like, oh, this could be popular. I think there's 3 people in my life that are directly responsible for where I'm at now. And the first is Chris Guillebeau. After I got back from that trip to Brazil I told you about, I saw that Chris had moved to Portland. I sent him an email, asked him if I could meet him for coffee, and he's basically been a mentor to me ever since. Now I help out with World Domination Summit. I'm his affiliate manager. He wrote about me in his first book, The Art of Nonconformity. So we're pretty good friends now, and I see him on a regular basis, and it was really due to his encouragement early on that I kind of got the guts to say, hey, okay, let's start this blog. Let's leave the job. Let's move. Let's do the whole thing. Another would be Dan Andrews. So I mentioned him. He's got a Cite the Lifestyle Business podcast because he's the one that gave me the initial shot. He said, hey, come to Thailand. Let's work on building a business together. So he gave me some of the structure to say, okay, maybe this whole blog thing isn't just a blog thing. Maybe there's something more to it. So he was the one that kind of, really gave me the opportunity, pushed me out of my comfort zone, and gave me the chance to go, start traveling and do everything that I had said I wanted to do, but hadn't taken a whole lot of action on. And the third person is, like I said, my best friend Ryan. He was the guy I went to Brazil with. He moved to Hawaii, quit his job, moved to Hawaii within a month after that trip. And when you're sitting in your day job and having to talk to your best friend who's like sitting on a beach, flying around in helicopters, like doing sunset tours. He was living the life for like 8 months.
Yeah.
And I knew he was getting ready to take his world trip that next January. It was a lot of motivation to say, hey, okay, you can't keep letting him show you up here. You need to start living your own life as well. And it worked out pretty well because he started his trip in Thailand. So for the first month I was over there, he was there. We had some other friends, and we just kind of went around and traveled, and it was a really good time. So those are the 3 biggest influences in my life.
Got it. Okay. And I was looking at your website too. I was seeing that you were on TEDx, and I think that was one of your first big speech that you did was on TEDx.
Yeah, yeah.
How did you get on TEDx, and what was that experience like for you?
It was actually surprising. I woke up one Sunday morning and I had an email from the team. They said, "We'd like for you to come speak at TEDx Carnegie Mellon." I was like, "What?" Sure, okay, let's do it. And it was one of the best experiences I've had. I really enjoy speaking. It terrifies me. I mean, that's like I was way more scared getting up on that stage than quitting my job or any of the other stuff I've done.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what makes it fun. That's what makes it interesting. And I think also with that particular crowd, it was I think it was like an engineering school. It was very, very much people that were a lot smarter than I was. But I also think it's a message that they didn't necessarily hear in their curriculum. So I had so many people come up to me afterwards. They said, of everyone that talked that day, your message really stood out. You were the most interesting, and you were the one that really brought some fresh perspective to something that could actually be tangible in our own lives. So just having that opportunity to talk to people that may not have thought about that stuff otherwise was really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I'm sure it must have been a really cool experience.
Yeah, definitely.
You were mentioning your bucket list earlier, and I showed everybody your bucket list right before we got started in our conversation. So I'm curious, what's next on your list? Like in the most coming months, what are you looking to cross off next?
Oh man, that's a good question. I've actually I've got the list that's pretty much been mostly unchanged for the last 4 years, but I've got like 150 more things that I've been making notes on, and so here in probably the next like 4 to 6 weeks, I'm releasing a new free book about basically how to build the perfect bucket list and why, and also adding all the extra stuff that I've added on there. But the biggest thing that I'm doing that's kind of like a secondary bucket list is I started a quest. I want to play the top 100 golf courses in America. So I'm a big golfer. People always look at that and they're like, "Really, you?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so I played my first top 100 course like 2 months ago, and I think I've played 5 so far. And so over the next couple months, I'm really working to play, some more of those and do some traveling in the process. And so, that's kind of one big thing that I'm working on. I also like to, I really want to stay at the Burj Al Arab Hotel in Dubai. And so I've got a friend that's living over there. So I'd like to maybe go make a trip out there and try and knock that one off the list.
That's cool. That's the one that looks like the sail, right?
Exactly, yeah.
I was there for the Millennium when I think it just opened up. It was we didn't stay there, but it was fireworks behind it. It was pretty cool.
Oh, I bet that was a cool experience.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. That's cool. That's awesome. So this is one question I love to ask everybody that comes on this show because I'm a philosophy major in undergrad, so this is something really interested to me. But Joseph Campbell once said that life has no meaning. Each of us has meaning, and we bring it to life. It is a waste to be asking the question when you are the answer.
Okay.
So my question to you is, what is the meaning that you bring to your life?
The meaning that I bring to my life is happiness is more important than anything else. I look at my life, and a lot of people say, what you're doing is selfish. It's like, oh, you're just in it for yourself. You want to go and do this. And my primary goal is to make myself happy, because I know when I'm happy, I'm going to be able to help make a ton of other people happy in the process. I look at, in the last year, we've had over 100 Location Rebel members actually start their own businesses and leave their job, which to me is unbelievable. I mean, I think that's awesome. And so, if it wasn't for me taking this jump, then those people, maybe they never would have done it. Yeah. When I was in my day job and I wasn't happy with what I was doing, I wasn't a whole lot of fun to be around. I wasn't really making my mark on the world. But when you're happy, and you're happy with what you're doing, and you're excited about it, it makes it that much easier for you to kind of translate that to everybody you talk to, everybody you work with, and in the end, just kind of make the world a better place to be. So that's kind of my number one goal and kind of how I approach life.
That's awesome. I love that answer. I can totally resonate, as I do a lot of the similar things, and I get that same response. So I totally resonate. I love that.
Totally.
So what is one advice, finally, before we leave here, what is one advice you have for people watching this? Is one thing they can go do, like one step to take right away in order to live that life that they want to, create that life of freedom, be a location independent?
It's actually really simple. If you really want to live this lifestyle and you want to start doing something today in order to make that happen, go buy a domain, get a hosting account, and install WordPress. I mean, it's very, very simple, but if it wasn't for initially starting that blog and that website, I would never be here. And you don't necessarily have to start a blog, but everything I do is based on the internet and it's based on WordPress. And I think that's probably the most, aside from maybe copywriting, it's the most important tangible skill you can learn. And so, a lot of people say, I don't know where to start. Well, start there. Buy a domain. I recommend like yourname.com. Like if you don't own yourname.com, start with that and hopefully it's available. Get a hosting account. You can do all this for less than $100. And that's the single most important step you can take, because once you understand how to do those things and you have those basics down, then in an afternoon you can create whatever site, business, product you want, and who knows where it goes from there.
Got it. It's a great and tip that just makes sense. I am curious about one quick thing, though. You mentioned copywriting, and I read your Forbes article as well about copywriting.
Yeah.
Where would be a good place for people to learn? Because you said on that article, I think it's like the most valuable skill you would need to know online if you're on that space. So where would a good place for people to go learn that?
Right. There's a few different places. I've got a whole blueprint for it in Location Rebel. So if you want to learn that along with kind of a breadth of other things and really start a business and leverage that could be a good spot.
Yeah.
If you really just want to learn copywriting, there's a course called Copy Hour, which is copyhour.com, which I think is the best resource for learning how to copyright. And also the website Copyblogger. So if there's one blog on the internet that will make you a better copywriter, it's absolutely Copyblogger. They have a ton of great free resources. The people behind it are awesome. So that's definitely worth checking out.
Cool. Awesome tips. Thank you so much, Sean. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you. I really appreciate you coming out and taking the time to be here.
No, absolutely. Thanks for having me. And if any of your readers have further questions or anything like that, feel free to send them my email address. I'm happy to help with whatever I can.
I appreciate that. Most definitely will do. Thank you so much, Sean. I look forward to staying in touch, and hopefully we can maybe do an adventure sometime in the near future together. That'd be awesome.
Awesome, man. I'll look forward to it.
Awesome, Sean. Talk to you soon. I hope you all enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. I get a lot of value from speaking with Sean. I've learned so much from him just from that conversation, as well as checking out his website. I've learned how to grow my own business, and I'm sure you will as well. The things he shares are just pure gold. So get out there, check out his free course. You can sign up right here. Get the free 6-step course on how to grow your business and live that life that you have been waiting for. And be sure to post in the comments below one challenge that you are facing in actually creating this lifestyle that you really want to live. So once we know what the challenges are, we can help you and support you in overcoming that. Either Sean or myself will respond to the comments and will reply to any questions that you have. And of course, if you know anybody who actually wants to create this lifestyle as well, who wants to travel the world, work from anywhere, be sure to share this interview with them. I'm sure they'll get a ton of value out of it. And like Sean says, start a website. Grow your business online. That is the place to be. Everybody's online these days. It's really, really not as tough as you may think. I look forward to seeing you again in the next episode of Our Journey into the Human Experience. Until then, remember, life is your playground. Go play it with joy and passion.